I really love being able to introduce Andrea. So many of those people and industry groups that she's challenged over the years have become frustrated and contentious because she is so effective and tenacious. And so many of us who have collaborated with her are so thankful of her effectiveness and tenacity. And what an amazing career she's had. Her work with the Health Research Group with Ralph Nader, investigating and exposing occupational exposures. Her groundbreaking work, truly groundbreaking work in the women's occupational health world. Her consumer and environmental stories that aired on CBS. Her ability to take on the mining companies when she was at MSHA, at the Mining Safety and Health Administration, and her phenomenal work that she's been doing at USC. But what's so compelling and important about all that work is how well Andrea knows the science and how she makes it accessible to communities. And at the same time, how she has come to know the experiences of those communities and the hazards that the residents in those communities face, and then makes that knowledge accessible to the scientists and helps influence the direction of their research. And that's today particularly true with the extraordinary work that she and others have been doing around the global trade and goods movement system. Just one more thing. Her good friend and a community leader in those battles, Angela Logan, who's sitting at the same table there, Angelo once said it best. He said, "Andrea, you're not just our leading street scientist. You are truly a community organizer." Knowing Angelo, that's the best compliment of all. Andrea, you truly speak truth to power. Congratulations.
Andrea Hricko grew up in Connecticut and had a childhood that emphasized the outdoors and the joys of family. Sledding, summers with her sisters, ballet in the backyard, and the rigors of a very strict Catholic upbringing. She majored in zoology as an undergrad and then headed to the University of North Carolina, studying public health. She got her first field experience on the Warm Springs Indian Reservation in Oregon. At Warm Springs, she conducted a HUD study on housing issues for Native Americans. After UNC, she went to Washington and worked for one of her heroes, Ralph Nader. There, Andrea focused on health and occupational safety issues. After a move to Berkeley, she wrote and produced a documentary film, Working for Your Life.
This is a story about America's working women. They work in the factories of West Virginia, the offices of New York, and the fields of California. It's a story of the hazards and demands they face.
I think they're out to make money, and they're going to make it. And if it takes a chemical, or it takes a fabric, or if it takes some substance that will make them more money, they're going to use it unless they're forbidden by law to do so.
She also started to bring people together by organizing conferences. At one particular conference, she invited John Froines to be the keynote speaker. After Andrea moved to Los Angeles with John, she went into the news and documentary business in earnest, combining her environmental interests with her filmmaking, working as a producer for KCBS TV. Next, she was called to Washington by the Clinton administration, where she worked to reinvigorate the health program of the mining industry, concentrating on diesel particulates and noise pollution for miners. In making a new film on silicosis, she discovered and incorporated footage from a film featuring Frances Perkins.
The Secretary of Labor called together a national conference to study this disease. But let's hear from Miss Perkins herself.
After a year of work, the National Silicosis Conference Committee has just made its report of findings and recommendations. This report shows how silicosis occurs, where it occurs, and what the disease is, and it makes recommendations for its practical control.
She moved back to LA from the job in the Clinton administration to the Keck School for Medicine at USC, where she directs community outreach and education about issues of environmental justice, challenging public policy and bringing people together to combat the hazards threatening our city.
The workers who had increased exposure to diesel showed increased rates of cancer.
I think for the first time, what parents are beginning to understand is that their child is being affected.
As a parent, there's nothing you can do when your child says that they can't breathe.
Andrea lives in Santa Monica with her husband, John Froines. Andrea Hricko, a real hero for health.
Thank you, Bob, for that great introduction, and thank you, Julie and Brogan, for the video. You have no idea how hard it was for me to find some of those photos. But I thank PSR-LA for this terrific award, which I greatly appreciate. I've been engaged in a lot of campaigns, public health campaigns in my life, lead poisoning in the workplace, black lung disease, silicosis, and more. But I would say that the work that has captured my attention over the past 10 years has definitely been the most rewarding. That's the work in trying to get port and transportation decision makers to protect public health as they rush to build new marine terminals, new rail yards, and expand freeways, all too often near lower income communities of color. I've been lucky to have worked closely with so many of you in this room on those efforts, and I've made a lot of really good friends among people in this room because of that. I would like to give a shout out to one of the early public health activists in the harbor area, Dr. John Miller. John, raise your hand, please, if you're here. Hey, John. We all owe you and others, Noel Park, Janet Gunther, Kathleen Woodfield, and others, a great round of applause for all the work that you did in the 1990s when you and Noel Park and others would speak before the harbor commissioners, and you would raise questions about air pollution and health impacts, and they would just look at you and roll their eyes or not pay any attention at all to what you were saying. Dr. Miller coined the phrase diesel death zone for the areas impacted by port and freight activities. And all I know is that there's a lot more work to be done before that phrase can be retired. Take our challenges with Caltrans as just one example. Officials there continue to think that building new freeways and adding more lanes reduces traffic congestion and makes our air cleaner. There's lots more education indeed that's needed, and many of us in this room are working on issues trying to educate people about the health impacts of expanding the 710 freeway. Another big thank you goes to our daughter, Rebecca Froines Stanley, for flying out for this event. She is the nurse manager of Yale New Haven Psychiatric Emergency Room. And to our son, hey, Rebecca, and to our son, Jonathan Froines, who is a student in landscape architecture at USC, and of course my amazing colleague, Carla Truex at USC, who adds tremendously to our work. Again, thank you all for being here, and to PSR for this award, and everything that PSR does to protect the public health. Thank you.